And I sent that email. Did y'all get my email? Did you do it yourself? Haven't done before tomorrow, please. We're gonna go over to something.
We need to speak up since it's so far away.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, because I have such dramatic voice. Where is it at? Where is it at? I lost it on my computer. Alright guys, welcome to video 3. And this video is called Reporting, Progress, Monitoring, and Adjusting. So it's just an extension of my Prairie View practicum. So currently right now I'm an intern at Prairie View A&M University. And this is a part of my principalship. Okay. So I wonder if I can just touch it. I can just touch it. Just touch it.
Swipe.
I think if you swipe.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So go back to our group norms, just because it's been a little while. We disagree with opinions, not people. Be positive and present, and we all have valuable information to share. Okay. Who's in the room? So I'll start off. So I'm Ursula Plummer. Currently, right now, I am in a ESL position in science. I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. This is my 6th year in education. At the same time, I'm teaching 10 years in general. And I've mostly worked in SPED, except for this year I did ESL, which sometimes I've done like SPED and ESL. I've always had like the ESL kids, with SPED. So this is the first year that I've actually had actually no SPED paperwork. And yeah.
Preston Broussard, science, this is my 4th year in education. I've kind of had everybody, high kids, low kids, SPED, ESL.
I'm Haley Allison. I teach Algebra 1. This year is my first year teaching Algebra 1, but I've been a math teacher for about 9 years. And so I've got all the advanced math students this year.
Great. I'm Tara Kanik. This is my 9th year teaching, but 8 years record. I started off in early childhood education, EC through 6 is my certification. Also, I got my ESL license, so I've had all ESL students for 2 years in Aldine 6th grade, English and language arts, and now here in Katy at Tasket, ESL, and I teach social studies for 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Okay. Thank you all for coming. I do believe that because we're in the middle of STAR. We are all finishing up STAR review, so I do appreciate you taking time and finishing up, observation videos and things. And I'm actually really excited. Oh, also my site supervisor, he's not on this campus, but he is Mr. George Beckworth. And so what we're gonna do real quick is we're gonna review our data. We're gonna kind of review video 1, 2, and then we'll jump into video 3. Oh, also, who's in the room? So Mr. Bennett is our SPED teacher. Currently, he is in an art. He may pipe in the video a little bit later. I'm not sure, depending on how the art goes. If not, then I know he'll for sure be with our second session. Okay, so just review our data. I'm gonna look over here because it's kind of weird. I want to be more I wish that I could sit with y'all so I want this to feel more like a conversation, even though I'm recording, even though this is for school, I'm really excited about some of the things that I've seen just around this. Like I said, I was very strategic when I picked the people. I know that you are department chair for math, and so you have to influence the whole building with math. And I know you're our second, department chair, behind the scenes. So, I'm excited about the things that I've been seeing, going on and the conversations that stem from here. So, let's jump into it. Let's talk about data. So, statewide data, TELPAS, beginning level is about 6%. Our intermediate level is about 36%. Our advanced level is at 44%, our advanced high level is at 14%. And one of the things we talked about today is a vast difference in our data from advanced to advanced high. You have about 44%, and then you drop down dramatically to about 14%. And so that was one of the things that we wanted to focus on is this is okay, but how do we get to great? Just talking about our campus specifically, so we have about 215 EV students growing. We know that number has changed, but for the sake of the validity, I pulled from the table reports. I want to use the actuality from the table report. So we have about 27% of students duly served in ESL and SPED, and then about 90% at our campus currently at advanced and our advanced high. So I just put this like point on it, and I was like, I'm not gonna put that on there. And so one of our key measures of accountability is our STAR test. Not our STAR test, excuse me, our TELPAS data. So let's just talk about a little bit about demographics at our school, just so they have an idea. Just for the sake of time, I'm only gonna talk about 8th grade because that is the only group that we focused on. That is the population that we focused on. That is the only population that we focused on for my data collection. So in 8th grade, we have about 491 students. Whew. They're actually the biggest grade, and that's about 36.1% of our school's population that had about 1,359. Again, like I said earlier, this number has changed. We're close to, if not at 1,500 students. We're busting out the seats here. Just for race and ethnicity, we have about 42.2% Hispanics, African Americans 29.9%, European Americans about 15.9%, Asians we have about 6.5%, 2 or more biracial students we have about 5.2%, American Indian we have about 0.2%, Pacific Islander we have about 0.1% students. When we talk about sex, so we have about 49.5% females and 50.5% males, and economically disadvantaged we have about 59.2%, and at risk we have about 47.4%, and English learners 21.4%, special education 16.3%, and section 504 is 3.7%. And one thing that we talked about from video one when we looked at our data initially was that we have a very high special education population, but we also have a higher dually served population. So that's very important because all of us, even outside of our specialty roles, which is me, mechanics, we have general education students, and in our general ed pop, that's where our dually served students mostly lie. And so it's just important to kind of have these conversations because our friends, not only are they struggling with the barrier of the language, but then they also have the cognitives or what other, disabilities that are impairing their learning as well. Any questions or comments about that? Okay. All right. Let me swipe. Okay. Purpose statement. So, conduct a needs assessment focused on improving ESL writing outcomes and moving students from advanced to advanced high on TELPAS. And we know that we did this across cross-content areas. Okay. Okay, come on, board. All right. At our campus, our students plateau in advance. So our video one, this is like the overview problem statement type thing. So at our campus, we know that our students are for some reason plateauing at advanced on TELPAS writing for whatever reason. And one of the things that we talk about is they need consistent vocabulary, extended writing opportunities, and increased engagement strategies to move toward advanced high proficiency. I'm not going to read the purpose statement again because I just read that. All right, video 2. So, okay, so video 2, while video 1 we kind of like figure out what the problem was, video 2 is about implementation, and I know one of the real things we talked about is what truly is gonna work for our demographic of students. Many times we go to professional development and they're like, oh, here's the keys, it's gonna unlock all the magical things of learning in your classroom. And we're like, girl, my kids gonna rip that stuff apart. You know, like the reality is that's not gonna work for our kids. And so what we wanted to talk about, like we talked about like what specifically work for our population, what specifically work for our classrooms, what specifically is going to work for our students. And that's something that we were very intentional about, and we had some very real conversations. And then we even talked about the whys. We talked about why, you know, even though we wanted to implement what are some of the barriers that were in place that were preventing some of these things. And so, very briefly, I know one thing we talked about, our strategies was interactive notebooks. Then we talked about weekly writing prompts. And then we also talked about introducing content-specific vocabulary. Going back to our interactive notebooks, I know like from what I've seen, like I've actually seen like people using it, like I've seen it across, and it may not look specifically like how I intended it to look, but it's being implemented with fidelity, and they do work. Like when you give your kids some kind of piece, like, hey, I'm giving you the things, it's your responsibility to hold them to, because like we also said, these are 8th graders, and then whatever strategies, if we're not, if we're not more intentional, when they get to high school, will they have about 300, those teachers have about 300 kids a day, at least, maybe, with the rotations, depending on the size of the school, the high school they're at. They don't have time. They don't have time to make all these things. Oh, I lost them, I'm gonna make you another one. They don't have time. Like, you need to be able to get this, and you need to kind of get on the ball, because the reality is, I think high school, there's some of the tests either they have 45 or 15-minute blocks. That's not a lot of time. And so another thing we talked about was weekly writing prompts, because that's something that I've seen that worked for me. Giving them the writing opportunity. Sometimes we can't embed them into directly to our curriculum, because I know for science, a lot of ours is inquiry based. And I know you talked about it, and for yours, y'all, they're even tightening the way y'all curriculum is, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, the good thing about it, so we're essentially going to standardize math curriculum across the whole district. Like, we will be teaching from the textbook,
Okay.
but the textbook that has been selected, the publishers had actually reached out to the district a couple of years ago saying, we want y'all to adopt our curriculum. What do we have to do to make y'all do it? And so the curriculum directors for the district actually gave them a list of stuff that we would need to see in the curriculum for us to consider it. So they do have writing prompts, almost like language graphic organizers for a unit.
Okay.
So the entire unit, they have vocabulary, they have example problems, and that's just a little printout that you can give to your students at the start of the unit. It's very intentional about discourse and your questioning, so it does have some good pieces in there as well.
And I see even Miss Kennick, so I went around, I know that 8th grade actually came to see my classroom to see like how, like what was I doing specifically with my ESL students and how could they take it back. And I've seen some of the things we talked about, I see they're doing them. Like they had like more interactive things, they had pictures, words, and they talked about the vocabulary before they began the unit. And I even seen them like, it wasn't a full-on like interactive notebook, but it was like little folders for the unit. And I'm like, hey, that works. That works. I mean, it's kind of like the interactive notebook, but you know, it's working. And then I even seen just the way that like initially at the beginning of the year I would come in, like it would be more of a lecture style, but then it would be more, it just began to be more interactive. They began to make things more live. So I do see that. I do see that in the science, and which tomorrow we'll talk about that more, and I'll put other pictures up there. We talked about introducing to content-specific vocabulary. And I will say this, so while we were going, like, talking about the things and like what worked, it made me also tighten up on my instructions. Like, while I was doing the things, I'm like, you need to make sure that you are doing things daily. Like, you need to make sure that what you're telling your teachers, you need to make sure that you're tighten up. And I think I was telling you, Broussard, about how my kids jump scores. Yes, so I was telling him from the beginning of the year, I wasn't doing these things. Until really tightening up, fine tuning, my scores jumped. One of my students, y'all, was at a 33, and at the last test we taken, I think they were at what, a 90? Did I tell you? They were at a 90 on a complete uni exam, just doing the things that I'm saying doing, and so they work, but we're gonna talk about that a little bit later, we're gonna talk more about that. Alright, so let's talk about, switch to the slide, okay, so our observation study overview. So the purpose of this is to continue to analyze instructional practices, and promote that student engagement, context of classroom observations and video analysis, and our focus effectiveness of the strategies that we use. Like, was it fluff, or did we actually see change? I'll just say, spoiler alert, I've seen some change. Okay. Let's see. Alright. Problem identified, so low student engagement. I think, and I'm really kind of a stickler about student engagement, because I think just for the age group we have, they just don't wanna be bothered. But that does not mean that they're not paying attention and they're not focused and they're not engaged. But it may not look like the energetic conversations that we're having right now. You know, chime in. Do y'all feel the same way? I just feel like 8th graders, I feel like they're so cool. Like, they'll be grasping everything you say and just kind of look. And you're like, are you getting it? Like, is this boring? Like, what, what's going on there? So talk to me a little bit about that. What do y'all think about that? And then we'll get into the real numbers, your actual numbers tomorrow.
I do notice the low engagement, especially in social studies, for my especially in my male students, for my ESL students, they've been the low engaged, and there's only 2 of them in there, and they kind of, best friends, so one gets in trouble, the other one gets in trouble, and so it kind of brings their morale down, and then if they get in trouble, they have to come back, they have to make up all this work, and so it makes them even more less engaged. I feel like they just feel that there's something on the horizon, there's something coming, there's a big change happening. Like, they're about to be going into high school, so they're low engaged because their minds are all focused on what's gonna happen next.
Okay, that's a different perspective. What do you think, sir?
Like, sometimes, like I said, I'm new to this, but I feel like sometimes the kids, they're looking to be entertained.
Okay.
And if they're not being entertained, they're less engaging. So.
I think, probably back in our day, you were engaged because you had to be.
Yes.
Like, there was no
Option.
I'm trying to even think, like, were we allowed to retest when I was in school?
I don't
There
think
was no retest.
that wasn't in our, that wasn't for us, no, that didn't.
We had a lot more consequences because I feel like our parents and administration were a bit more united, and now we have to get creative because we either have, we have a bunch of wonderful parents, but then we also have parents who are either uninvolved or combative.
Okay.
And so we are pretty much the only people who can control some things, because we know once this kid leaves this classroom, they aren't doing anything. Or
Yeah.
they're not gonna receive consequences for something because they may get a detention, but nothing happens to them at home, so they don't care. So what I found was just figuring out like what the carrots are for my kids to dangle in front of them.
Okay.
And sometimes it can look a little bit more like, oh, you're being entertained, but right now, they're getting grouped based on how they did on certain concepts, as we do our EOC review. And right now, the engagement is the color group they are in. Because my green group, I check in on those kids more. They're the ones that needed a little bit more reteaching. My blue group, y'all have mostly got it. I need y'all to practice a little bit more. And then my purple group, y'all could teach this to somebody else, so I'm extending your thinking. I'm giving you all challenge problems.
Okay.
And so right now, the kids are engaged because they think how they do on a certain day determines where they go the next day. So my kids in the green group, they're like, I am dying to get to blue or purple. And I'm like, sweetheart, I'm looking at your test data. Like, it really depends on the concept. They don't know that. Like, they don't know
they
why
don't know
they
that
are where they are. So they are almost like competing for something. And a couple of them are getting competitive. You're blue today, I'm purple, ha ha ha. And then they're like, oh, I'm gonna get you tomorrow. And so, but that's also, I've got a lot of competitive kids. So that was a little bit easier for me to get more bang for the buck without having to do a lot of the bells and whistles.
Okay.
But I do think they want to be entertained.
And I mean, that could go with the generations that we have.
Yes.
But then also, on the flip side, it could just be their personalities. Like, they're understanding and they're learning. I just don't want to, like, show you that I'm understanding and I'm learning. Because, like, my kids, like, y'all, it was one unit, I'm like, oh, it was acids and bases. You know, it was a whole bunch of, like, we had, like, 50 million labs for that unit. I don't think we had as many labs as just acids and bases. And they were just stone faced. And I'm like, are y'all understanding? Like, do we understand what's, I'm really about to translate into your language because I'm like, do you know what's going on? And they did great on their unit test, y'all. They blew it out the window, but they just gave me very athletic, very low effort. And so if somebody would have came into my room, they would have said, oh, she has low engagement. But in reality, I don't know, I've always kind of mean engagement. I'm like, well, that looks different for everybody, because right now I can say that all of y'all are engaged, and then some people say they weren't interested in your, you know, they were interested in your video, but then I do understand also that some of them got dang a little carried. We have the intrinsic motivation, and then somebody said like, hey, you just gonna get it together, and then the other one's like, behavior is a little bit of the problem, why we not engaged? So I think that is something to think about as we like the next steps. That's something for us to think about and talk about.
It is hard to assess.
Yeah.
Yes. And then we can just go into these because we've been talking about them. Students distracted or passive. We talked about that. My friend in here. This is my social time, and sometimes honestly, I kind of do feel bad for the guys because. And I think one of the reasons why we have it so rough in middle school, because elementary, you have so much freedom. Not necessarily freedom, but you have
time to play.
Yes, you have free time to play. But in reality, I think for our population, if we were to give them an extra break, I don't know if they could handle it. You know, I don't know if we gave them 15 minutes of a break. Like, I don't know, and I'm even talking about middle school in general, just our population of kids, could they safely handle that extra time? Because they don't have a lot of time to social. That's why I try to have a lot of talking pieces in class so they can talk and work together. As long as like 90% of the conversation is about this, I do give them a little leeway time because they are at a very social age. And then need for intentional instructional strategies. We talked about that also in here. How sometimes they may feel the material is boring, but no, and I think what was our most like Newton's laws. Newton's laws is not. There wasn't a lot of labs about it. I mean, you kind of got to know it, you know. And the kids were like, "Why do we have to know this, honey? Because if you fall off the chair, I need you to understand like what is going on." You know, even like when we first started doing X's and bases, and I'm like, because if you grow up and you get your own place and you mix ammonia, and you mix bleach, and you close the door and you start mopping with that stuff, I need you to know what's gonna happen to you. You're gonna be somewhere laid out. And so we're just for the sake of time, we are gonna hold off. We're gonna hold off on the rest, and tomorrow we will bring in our real data. We will wrap this thing up. All right, so we're back, and today we're gonna talk more about our data and just like actually like how, not how, but our methodology, like what were we using and how effective it is, and just getting to those questions. So we're gonna start off with our action plan implemented. So use strategies, use structured engagement strategies, incorporated questioning and discussion, and focus on student participation. So, our first question, and y'all, I tried to get it in the PowerPoint, but as you know, we had technology fail, so I'm gonna actually turn my computer around and then talk to y'all about the data. So the first question that I asked was, how often do you implement the warm-ups from 3:13 to 4:10? 50% of you guys said daily, 50% of you guys said at least 3 to 4 days a week. And we know from our initial conversation, that's a big difference. Some of us, I think, was like every 6 weeks. you know, when we could. Some of us just didn't have it in there. So I think that shows commitment and fidelity toward, you know, toward the study. Okay. How often were interactive notebooks used from 313 to 410? So we had one that was not used, and that's Mr. Bennett, and I can understand that because
I think that was
you.
me. Just because
Okay.
we were hitting like star review time, but what we did is something different. And after we talked about it yesterday, I was like, oh, I shouldn't have put no for that. They still had their work, like they had their work all together, but it wasn't in a notebook.
See, remember when I
And
came
so-
and I said that? I was like, they're not.
that's why
Yeah, they're
when
not
you said that, I was
acceptable.
like, okay, well, actually, technically, then I should not have put no.
So we gonna change that because like I said, and I didn't, and I intentionally. One thing about me is that I think it's just a Texan to me. One thing about Texas, we like to have, what is it called? We like to have not leniency, but we like to be in control. We like to have some type of control. You can see that all throughout Texas, and I think that's just a Texan thing. So when I do as a leader, I do autonomy. We love autonomy as Texans, and so I intentionally didn't say you need to have the composite notebooks. They need to look like this. No, it just needs to look like. Am I doing something? Can I pick it up? Can the students references? Do they know this is yours? This is your ownership, and is it being used frequently enough for them to recognize? I go and grab that because interactive notebooks. That's a whole other story. It can look a plethora of different ways. That's why I never, y'all notice, I didn't say, hey, it needs to look like, I never ever said that. I never will say that. Even if I become a principal or assistant principal, I never will say, hey, it has to look like this. This is what I need, you know, and did you check off this, and this? And so, yes, you are right. You did it. Because social studies, I see the same, similar kind of thing. They have some little mini books, and I'm like, y'all, that is still interactive notebooks. The kids know where to find them. They are still writing them. There's still tools used to help them with just the material that we're giving them, so that they have the tools, but we're not constantly providing them because they're in 8th grade, and we're not gonna do that. I'm gonna give you something, and it's going to be your responsibility to make sure that you're keeping ownership of it. We all agree?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you implement a weekly writing strategy? So I'm gonna show y'all my little bubble. So blue indicates 100% yes. So everybody implemented writing every week. And like I said, I popped in to different classes, and I can see that. Like, I can see that. And I hope y'all know, like, I'm really excited to see, like, what our data look like at the end of this 9 weeks, whatever, but 6 weeks. So elementary's 9 weeks. So whatever that looks like at the end of the 6 weeks, I'm really excited to see what that data will say. Because these strategies, y'all, I mean, they may seem like small or minute, but they do work. They do work, and I've seen them work in my class, and I kind of seen it in y'all's now that, like, once we get the hard data, because I would like to mitigate even after this video, just to kind of, like, check in with you guys in May, you know, and even next year, like, because we know we have a huge population coming over, and just things the way they're moving around, like, if you need support then, you know, I'm here, even if I won't physically be in the building. Okay, so how would you rate student engagement during writing activities? So it was low, moderate, high. So we were about 75% moderate range, and we were about 25% in the high range. And I mean, that's really good. That's really good. But like we say, what is really engagement? Like, who truly defines engage? Because I can be silent and I'm still actively learning what I need to. Do I have to put on a pony show to be truly learning? So, and remember that in your classroom, engagement looks different. You know your kids, you deal with these kids every single day. I don't. You know, and I tell people coming in, like when they observe my class, this is the quietest group I've ever had in my whole teaching career. They just, even other ESL kids I've had, they're quiet. Like, these kids are quieter, you know, they're very quiet. I'm like, y'all don't wanna, okay.
And I don't remember what I put, but I kind of thought about the products I got for my engagement for, okay, I was not standing next to you whenever you wrote this. What type of response did you give me? And so that was something that I really liked seeing was, hey, y'all were working completely independently on this. Like this little question that I asked for a written response, that was just while you were working on the activity. It wasn't some big, okay, everybody pause. We're all gonna write a response to this. I'm gonna put a 5-minute timer. And the quality of the responses that I got, when you know what, technically, if you would have answered in 5 words, like that would have been fine. I got sentences without me giving them those guidelines. And so to me, that was pretty high engagement.
Yep.
Because I did not put, you need to have this many sentences, you need to use this vocabulary word. It just kind of came naturally to them. And that was really reassuring to see. Did I have my couple 3-4 word answers? Yes. But the overall trend was towards a well thought out answer.
Okay.
And
like
see, I
that.
put moderate because mine was mixed.
Yeah.
Like, I had some that they did like that, and I had some, just a couple words, you know, so without that, hey, do this,
Mhm.
hey, this is what I need.
But you know, even for STAR, because all of our kids will take STAR. STAR doesn't grade the the number of words.
Right.
It grades the quality. So if you researched the part, you did this, then you are good to go. And I think that as educators, that we have to go back to the root.
Right.
They don't have to write 6 sentences to fully get through. Maybe they don't have the capacity to. But you gave me 3 solid sentences that answered everything that I needed. You know, because that's the capacity with you to give. Now maybe my CAP class, I'm gonna need a little bit more, or I expect more. But if you can give me 3, then we're on the road to success. Like I don't know when the shift happened, or the shift change of just length equals rigidity.
Right.
I don't know what the correlation. I don't know who thought of that. Like I would have to do more research, but length does not.
And it also leads them to make a big chunk of a paragraph that only is literally 1 sentence, because they didn't add any periods, punctuation. So it's just big one long drawn out thought with no evidence and no restating. So like if we just give them a template like we did at an Aldine for my ESL students, I had beginners writing full essays and just the template, restate, answer, prove, conclusion, wrap it up.
Y'all remember the house? The house? Like we need to go back, we need to bring that house back. But even in our subjects, like that's something that we can use. Like this is what we need to get me. And I think 4 sentences? The house is like four sentences.
That's it.
And I think it was also, we probably grew up in the time where it's 5 paragraph essays, 3 to 5 sentences every paragraph. And there is some stuff that, because I would talk with Price, I'd have her kind of look over my rap responses whenever I did that with my students, because I wanted to grade them at the same level that they're expected to be on the EOC. And I'd sit there, I'd be like, these are 3 sentences. They restated it, answered it, and provided proof within 3 correct sentences. But it felt weird as somebody who's used to writing all this stuff. But it was like, no, they got to the point. They answered the question. Like, this is a perfect response.
Consistently.
Yep.
And so I think just as a teacher too, now that I know what I'm supposed to look for, that helped. And like, this is the type of stuff I'd like to do in that beginning of the year PD, so that all subjects are on the same page at the beginning. And I think it's more clear than just include critical writing in your class.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have to be something that you're sitting a week planning for all this stuff. Critical writing could be, what it's been in our STAR review is, hey, how is finding domain and range different when you have 2 endpoints as opposed to a starting point? That's an easy question to come up off the top of your head. That's probably something you would ask your kids out loud, put it on a piece of paper and have them do a written response to it.
Yep.
And I think that people need to know you're not reinventing the wheel. Take the stuff that you already ask your kids and literally take one of those things, put it at the end of their notes, or put it in the middle of their notes and give them time to process and think. You're not having to do anything fancy.
And I'm so glad that y'all brought that up, because that is the whole thing, y'all. When I wish I would have had one of my students interactive notebook. I left it over there. But like from the beginning of the year to now, like you can see the big shift, because I just needed you to write. My kids don't even realize from day 1 they've been writing, because I knew I'm like, oh, y'all have to write on this test. How do I teach kids that don't know this language how to write when you give them many opportunities?
Mhm.
you constantly get, and so that's what I was doing, like daily, that small things that you would say to talk about. Okay, let's just put this on paper, and it doesn't have to be this long big thing. Like you said, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're just oiling and polishing and
Right.
washing that wheel off. Like, I'm never gonna be teaching you to say you gotta correct this from the ground up. I think that is foolish. We have a very tough job of teaching Gen Alpha. I don't know what this generation is called, but if we have enough work with these babies, then it creates some things that's already there. And so that's one of the things about the talk that we're having, is that we have the tools. Let's just go ahead and figure out how they go, where they work, what we're gonna work on. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to my next questions about what challenges do students experience, and it's a little bit of a variety. I'm gonna go through them and then I'll turn my computer around. So it says organization. We had about 3. And this was a select all that applies. Just so we're aware. It was organization. Well, I spelled that wrong. And it was 3. And it was about 75%. Writing stamina. Everybody agreed. We don't have the list. Language vocabulary was about 50%. Understanding the prompt, 25%. Okay, and then Mr. Bennett, who was in the art, he said, my position is unique, being an in-class support my SPED students, particularly those that are duly served, have profound thoughts, but struggle with being able to express them outside of their native language. That was huge. That was big. And that is true. And that's very true. And finding the words to say. And one thing that I do encourage you, and we did this before the next year, y'all, next year, go ahead, even if you are in class support, at the beginning of every lesson, like have that vocabulary with some kind of word, even if it's a quick little slideshow. Y'all, we have AI. You pull it from the unit, and I know, like, we have Savvis, like, the district is pretty good. I know yours
That's
is,
what we're going to for math.
Oh,
Savvis.
really?
Yes.
No, you're gonna like it. I really
Mhm.
enjoyed Savvis at first. I pushed back on it, but I really did enjoy it. In taking, they give you the unit, they give you the vocabulary for
That's
the
what we
unit.
were talking about
It-
yesterday.
And so what I encourage you to do is, y'all listen, it can be the warm up, and I've used it before. Take 5 minutes and actually use it, put it in a little PowerPoint, have AI put pictures next to it. Just so they can do it, and then when you take that PowerPoint, print it off, and put like 4 to a page, have the kids put that definition with that picture and print it, and so at every unit they have those words, and it will strengthen, so that when you are having those writing prompts, you're not coming up to me, I gave you that already, go shoot fly, go get your stuff, because that's what we want to get them to. Like, at the end of the year, we want to be like a birdie. You got it, go ahead and go away. Like, and that's what I started doing. I started weaning my kids out about October. I didn't need you depending on me. We have TEL class coming up, because if we continue this, by the time we take our fall midterm or our winter midterm, you're gonna be so dependent on me. I'm not gonna be able to get nothing done because everybody's gonna want to pull on me. They're in 8th grade. You need to do it yourself. So give them the tools, but the expectation is you do it yourself. And so this is my toolbox.
I think also with the vocabulary, I think that for a while there was a big push on like student-friendly language, but there's a balance.
Yep.
Too. Like, we even catch that in math. It gets really easy to be like, okay, look, I know what you're talking about, like, I'll let it slide, but it's like, no. Because then sometimes in math, we have a lot of different words that mean the exact same thing. Slope, rate of change, constant proportionality, like a lot of these things mean the same thing, and not pushing that vocabulary and letting stuff slide allows for more confusion, because then it's March and you still have kids saying, what's the rate of change? Child, that's slope. We've been talking about that since you were in 7th grade. They're the exact same thing. They're synonyms.
I noticed that in the math academic night last night, they were looking at inequality, and they were like, is this, am I supposed to create an equation or inequality? So they were like getting that mixed up, so.
And some of that stuff you just have to be comfortable correcting all year. Like, some kids, it will take you correcting them all year. Oh, you said equation, it's an inequality. So
And even having, like, if you can, but it sounds like a pretty good job of paying
Yes.
those words. You just pull them and just throw them in. That's what I do. I just pull them and throw them. Pull them and throw them.
Because they have that like sheet, I think it's specifically for EL students, but I think
Yes.
it's beneficial to everyone as well,
Mhm.
where it has like the vocabulary words used in a sentence,
Yep.
and then it has like example problems too at the bottom half of that. And if you're doing an interactive, which I think we might do interactive binders next year,
Yes.
and that's the beginning of unit 1, is having that sheet, and then being diligent, like you said, about, hey, you have 50 different places you can look for how to do this problem. Look there first before you ask me.
Yeah, but you know when I do that, if I give you interactive binder, I take a grade on it.
Yep.
Give them a
Take a
grade. Give
Yep.
them like if I'm gonna give you this
That's
stuff,
your
I'm gonna
first
take time to
grade.
print it off. Like
Mhm.
every unit, we do unit checks, right? We do unit checks. I'm gonna look through and see, like, is this done? But just for the sake of time, so we can make sure we get through all of it, I am gonna move past because this is a great conversation. But I do want to get to some of the other questions, especially the last two. Now we can jump back to this because we have 2 questions left, but I just want to, for the sake of time, just go ahead and finish these 2 questions out. All right, so I'm gonna answer the last one first, and then I'll move back up to the first one, or the one prior to that. Do you feel these strategies are improving writing? So I had 100% yes. Like I said, when I went into different classes, when I popped into different classes, I seen the difference in even how the kids were. Like, I seen like you were putting out, I meant to put it up there, but Google didn't want to be nice to me today. But Miss Coaches had like different pictures with like different, I don't know, what were they doing? It was-
So that was grouping the kids based on how they perform that or on that concept. So they'd have challenge mountain for my kids that are like up here and they need to be pushed. That's where I get a lot more of my writing. Them and the practice mountain are doing more of the like synthesizing, but even my kids that sweet babies don't know left from right, we are writing more of the technical, okay, I need you to remember these steps. You're gonna put these steps in words.
Yes.
And so I was trying to even tier like the writing responses of, hey, you're comparing how this changes went from X to Y. Meanwhile, y'all are just telling me in words, how do I even solve this problem?
And that's differentiation in real time. Like, that is something some teachers that are 30 plus years, they don't know how to do. So that is a huge thing. That's a huge thing. And I know, Broussard, you're strategic about how you place your kids around the room, because I've been in here, I've seen them. I've seen the way they sit, I've seen the way they place. And I know from some of your media babies, you have like what they call proximity controls, where you can easily,
Sitting right on the floor next to me.
you can easily access them. And I'm like, okay. And I was thinking you do it even without EB babies. You move them back so we can. You got this. So good job there, and they do make me feel good to know that what we use is that we can actually see in real time like how this is working, how this is truly beneficial to our students. This wasn't just Miss Plummer's pulling your lunch, but I'm truly actually giving. We have these tools that truly are helping our students, and I do like it. So I know Ms. Coulters, you are Allison.
It's Allison now, officially on my driver's license.
Okay, so it's Allison.
It's official.
So Miss
2
Allison,
years
so
later.
she is the department head over all of the math, and I've seen it. So I was telling her I do support some of the EB babies in the 7th grade math class, and I've seen the difference. I've seen how they have warm-ups. I've seen now how they were talking about it. Okay, I'm like, she was talking to her people, and her people have been listening. Yes, and that's why one of the reasons why I did pick who I picked, because we're flowing into different people, so we can share different things. And I know you are the department, and you're like the mini. Everybody know Mr. Bruce, everybody. So it's easier, so these tools are shared with people, because while we couldn't train everybody at the beginning of the year, what we can do is, you have probably the most influential power. But can you imagine it spreading like wildfire, and the results that we've seen here, we see it cross-curriculum, multi-grade, multi-tiered levels. Like, that's a big thing, because that's one of the things that we need to work on here at Heskett. Okay, what support do you need moving forward? Some said none. Somebody said, our newly served population would greatly benefit from accommodation and modifications that meet the method level, both from an academic and language acquisition standpoint. So basically what he's saying is that using the tools that we have, but actually putting them into kids' IEPs. And and that's something that he said that he's gonna be more vigilant about, because these kids do have them in every subject, not because it may work, it is working, and now it's legally binding for our babies, especially those dually served, because y'all, we have a huge population of dually served. Can you imagine, we got a language issue barrier, and we have a cognitive barrier, that's tough.
And I think that this could probably help identify, because I think if you are not trained with ESL kids, you may just think, oh, there's just a language barrier.
Yep.
And you may never uncover that, oh, there's a content barrier too. Like, they didn't learn this stuff in their native language, but meanwhile, you're thinking the only reason they're struggling is because, oh, I'm doing everything in English. And there can absolutely be both.
And we know here, we have a huge population of them.
Mhm.
And I honestly, one reason I've learned that we don't catch it at the junior high level or the middle school level is that usually those kids are really, they're socially acclimated, and so you don't really, like, they're not,
harder to catch.
yeah, it's harder to catch. They're standing out because they are so socially acclimated. They can work their way around, they can navigate social situations so well
Mhm.
that you're like, oh, you're getting, you're like, oh, it's language, and you're like, hold on, this is not language, this is something more. But like you said, if you don't have that proper training, then you won't be able to see that. But that's why this group is important, because like I said, now we have, you're like, oh no, especially you have the most power here because you're over math the building.
And I think this is something that there has to be buy-in on a campus level.
Yeah.
That every teacher, and that's the hard part, because right, people aren't perfect, and you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Yeah.
You know, no matter how many conversations you have with people, no matter you show them, hey, this is the data, whenever we are incorporating writing, if they don't wanna do it, they're not gonna do it.
Yeah.
And so it's really cultivating this in a way where you're not telling teachers reinvent the wheel, that you're saying, hey, this is just best practices for all of your students. Why not do something that's gonna make your life easier?
Yes.
Yes, and it's gonna be good on your T-test because you're covering all your bases.
Well, this has been nice. I've been able to upload like my writing. I've been scanning my writing samples and all that stuff and uploading it to Strive because I'm like, I'm doing it. Why not get props for doing it?
Yeah, most certainly. Like, and you should. Let me see. I think we've been covering. I just haven't been scrolling. Evaluation videos, reviews, student responses. We did that. Findings: increase in student participation, improve responsiveness, more consistent engagement across lessons. Sorry, things got cut off. Oh wait, hold on. Yeah. Okay, so I think we pretty much covered all the ground. Like I said, next steps, refine strategies, monitor progress, not necessarily refine strategies, more so monitor progress, and implement additional supports if needed. And then also, like, let's plan for let's plan for one more meeting in May, just to kind of come back and just look at our data, because I'm interested in seeing like how our unit tests, like what they look like now, compared to what they